Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches around the world, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy Road Dogg here with none other than, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy that doesn't get tongue-tied like I do, Mr. Karl Bryan. Shoots.
Road Dogg. Lately, you haven't been getting tongue-tied lately. Shoots.
It's, you know what? It's your grumpy ass mood from the pre-show that's carrying over. So 100%.
Road Dogg just gave me talking to, ladies and gentlemen. He said I was being significantly too serious, and he said, loosen up. You got 30 seconds. So here I am, as loose as I possibly can be. So shoots. Thank you.
All right, bud. If you're going to be all Captain Serious, I'm going to go straight into the first question because it's a carry. And then we'll see if we can't get this back on track. All right. Do you have anything else to say? Like, what's going on, bud? You feeling okay? I just want to make sure you're good, bud.
Okay. Dude, I'm good. But yeah, actually, well, before, anyways, I was looking for something earlier, and it just, and like you just, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. Like one of those moments, right? Where like I literally printed something off. It was like 240 pages. Thank you very much. And there's one specific page that I was looking for, and lo and behold, I think what I did is I pulled it out, and then I was outside, and I think it blew away. So, oh man, whatever. It's all good. But Road Dogg, little frustration there. Maybe that's what's coming through. But I'm good. I'm great. But
I'm just trying to figure out, besides real estate agent, did you have to fax it as well? Like, why are you printing out 240 pages of anything? Like, this is dealing with a real, can you fax that over to my office? Like, who the hell uses a fax machine anymore?
That's a good, what is important. And that's a good point. But sometimes I need a visual, I thought that through. And so there's some things that I need to, I'm a visual person. So sometimes I just find that I need to hold something in my hand. And I was like, you know what? This is important stuff. And I wonder if I print it and then I kind of scoot through and can touch it and highlight it and put stars on it and muck around with it. I wonder if it will go deeper. But yeah.
So here's just a little tip for you. I know that technology is not your strong suit. You can always go back and reprint. So just like when it comes off into the printer, it's still on your computer. It doesn't actually leave it and goes onto the paper. Just,
I didn't realize that. Well,
yeah, see, I'm just here to help, bud. I'm just here to help. Hey, but before we get started on any of this, by the way, this is a perfect question. How do you park a bad mood before, like, let's say you're about to go into a sales call, and this is going to be good, folks. This is completely off script. This is going to be beautiful. Tongue tie city or rabbit hole, hard to tell. You something like, let's just say you get cut off or you get pissed off before you head into a sales meeting or whatever. How do you park it and how do you move on? What do you do?
Yeah, I can tell you a rabbit hole city possibly, but you got to have like before the call, you know what I mean? Because you're not there for you. It's not about your bad mood and your family and your dynamic and you're this, that, and the other. You're there to deliver results. So if you are remaining true to, your values and what you represent. And we'll assume that one of those values is that, like, one of the things I do, I spend a lot of time on a phone, right? And if I get on the phone with somebody with 100% certainty, my goal is always to serve. But at the end of that conversation, I want them to be able to take something away that they otherwise wouldn't have had. So if it's a 5-minute conversation, a 15-minute conversation, a 1-hour conversation about somebody buying something, somebody selling something to me, but that dynamic as well, I guess. That's kind of not my day to the hesitation is not that's not my day to day world where I'm on the phone and somebody's selling me something. Not that that doesn't happen, but at the end of the day, Road Dog, that's it. That's my value. So I just got to. I've got my why. I've got my deliverable. I've got a certain standard that I look to live up to. And it's the same even Road Dog before this podcast. And you've heard it, right? Like, I mean, I before this podcast, I do my absolute utmost, and I am far, far from perfect. But I'm listening. Thunder. I got ACDC playing. You know what I mean? Like I'm elevating my level of state because my belief is that I'm here freestyling, and Road Dogs hit me with questions. If I can, if I'm in a higher level state, I'm going to be able to deliver a higher level answer. I'm going to be able to go further into my subconscious mind, further into my experiences, further, better examples, better metaphors, deeper answers that I feel like will provide a lot of value. So by being in an elevated state, that the music helps me. So how do you do that? So I think that what you've got to do is you got to have rituals, right? So before that call, what are you doing there? Sitting there crying in your Cheerios, or do you have your ritual that you follow? And look, Tony, you want an example of this? Tony Robbins, love him, hate him. Personally, I love him. I'm okay with whatever your opinion is of him. I think he's got the best content in the personal development world by a lot. Before he goes on stage, he's got this spiel, and you can have a look at it on the internet that he talks about God coming through him, and he is going to deliver, and whatever it takes to deliver, the result and the action and the elevation of life of those that are in his seminar. That's what he's going to do, And again, and he talks about, laughter and brevity. You know what I mean? Like he's got all this. Yeah, he's got that ritual. So that's what he does. And he does a little spin and then he walks on stage and he does it to this day. And if you want, you'll see it in what's his documentary? I'm Not Your Guru. And if you watch it, you'll see it right there for you. You can see before he goes on stage, he does it. He does a little spin, walks out, bingo, bango, bongo, goes. So yeah, you got it. It's not about you, Shoots. It's about them, and it's about a result. Um, the rituals and that state. The rituals will save you, man. The rituals. I think that's the
I
answer
love
we're
how
looking
you,
for here.
you make it sound like you forgot the name of that movie, like we both haven't seen that like 100 freaking times each. Hey, listen,
I've
by
seen
the
them.
way, on that note, when you say that, that caught me there for a second because if you're going into a meeting, do you go in with one sort of do you go in with one primary thought of when I leave, if I just get this one point across, I will have achieved what I wanted to?
Uh,
Like, is that how
yeah,
almost you frame your meetings?
out of 100% outcome, but it's not a thing. It's an outcome.
Mm.
My goal is that, so the outcome is another call, an introduction to, say, a salesperson, an enrollment in a training, a watch. My goal is to get you to watch a video. That's the outcome that I'm looking for. But it's LA, New York, and I'm totally flexible with how we get there, but I am dogmatic with what the outcome is. And then, actually, importantly, this might provide some value. I will, if I have a really important call, which ironically I had on Friday last week, looking to hire a new guy. I had a very defined outcome that I wanted, assuming that the conversation was going well. If the conversation is not going well, this isn't our guy. Look, a 1 hour time slot would go well. We had already had a prelim meeting to that, so there was no chance that it was going to be over in 9 minutes. But if this is not my guy, I'm not looking to fill time. The conversation went over very quickly. But that being said, so 4 things that maybe somebody could take away. One is a defined outcome of every call. And then I've got 3 things like a politician. I try not to do more than 3 if you understand, numerology, that there's power in 3. So 3 is your best chance. I'm going to have 3 things that I want to bring across. And they are normally not rah rah kumbaya. They are things that this person probably hasn't heard before, and they will normally be of the. And I've talked about this 1,000 times, but it will normally be of the. It'll be me standing against telling them why something is wrong and a mistake, as opposed to, gee, if you do this, the world's going to be a wonderful place. So that is what I absolutely do before a big call.
Perfect. I always thought you just sat around and talked to yourself in your car. I don't know. That's sort of what I've witnessed it, folks. It's
Yeah,
so
there is a
good.
bit of that.
So
But
good,
anyway,
dude. Hey, listen, I want to follow up from last week. We got a bunch of feedback. You were talking about the chiropractic client,
right.
and sort of, I guess, changing their business model. And we got a question here that asks, last podcast you were talking about going from sore back chiro client to 5K package. Can you expand slash explain? I thought that was probably really worthy because that's such a huge
Yeah,
shift, especially for that business. And I just think a huge
yeah,
shift in the thinking of coaches from how they can really have a huge impact to changing somebody's business. So I thought it was a really good question. So, what do you think, Bud?
yeah.
Like, how can you then, the sore back Cairo to 5K package? Can you expand on that a little bit more?
I can. Good and agreed. Good question. Where okay, so what would maybe just pre-frame, and if you listen to previous podcast, just how do you help a Cairo client? One of the things I said is the business model has got all kinds of challenges before you even start with your client. And one is that they're probably a pay-as-you-go Cairo, as in you show up, you pay, you don't show up, you don't pay. And then what happens is you get short-term relief and you stop coming. And the chiropractor strangely hasn't been taught or nor gone to a place of time to think to be able to solve that very regular problem, right? So the way you can combat that is by building a $5,000 package. Well, the average Cairo client, you're probably thinking like you don't want to go to the Cairo and then whip out your credit card and spend $5,000, right? So how do you make that happen? First of all, if you don't have a $5,000 program, I guarantee you one thing. I can't guarantee you much, but I guarantee you one thing. That's that you'll never sell one, because nobody's going to say, "Hey, why don't you just charge me $5,000 instead of $110?" It's not going to happen, obviously. So you need a $5,000 package, but you're going to need to have a process on how to get there, right? So, and by the way, when somebody calls, it's the same with the daycare, and it's the same with the car lot, and it's the same with the realtor. Everybody starts on price, and then they end up on value, right? And if that wasn't the case, we'd all be driving $1,000 cars, and that's clearly not the case, right? So you've got to have, just because they ask price first doesn't mean that they're stuck there, and that's where you need to go. And the way you'll get there is by telling a story. So, as an example, I've got a okay, so here's an example. I've said this story many a times in the past. I haven't said it for a long time, so I might make a meal of it a little bit, but hopefully you guys will get it. And I've said it on the podcast, so I apologize if you're hearing this for the second time, but possibly that'll provide you some value hearing it a second time because you'll be able to pull more out of it. So here it is. They come into the chiropractor, and what you do is you sit them down. Um, and it's like, okay, so tell me, first thing you got to do is data, 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 little red arrow, you are here. You got to get some information out of them to understand kind of where they're at, some of the challenges that they've had, and you're working on them. One of the things I would get them in there, you got to do x-rays and you got to be able to show them some visuals. And then I'd say, look, here's let me tell you a story. There's a guy, Jim McMahon, that you might have heard of. Okay, so in 1985, won a Super Bowl with the Chicago Bears. And what happened is his neck, he has early onset dementia. But what happened is he was going to see all these folks, and they just assumed that he had, what do you call it, CTE? That disease that a lot of football players have, right? And it creates all kinds of cognitive challenges for them. So they just accepted that Jim McMahon played like he was a quarterback, but played like a linebacker, and they just assumed that he had what all the others had. Until one day he went to go see a chiropractor. The guy did, they basically, did a little bit of homework on him. And what they worked out is by instead of looking at his brain, but looking at his neck and his back, what they found is that his neck was so messed up that he wasn't getting enough oxygen through his neck. Okay. And that was depriving his brain of oxygen, and that was bringing on the early onset dementia. So he goes to the chiropractor. The guy takes his hand like this and goes, you can see a documentary on Jim McMahon. He literally says this, and he goes, it was like a toilet was flushing. So they did this little tweak in his back, and all of a sudden, he could breathe, significantly better. He was, significantly clear headed. And by the way, the early onset dementia, whatever the damage that had been done, they couldn't have corrected that. What they did do is stop it. So tell the story, and then I would say, so I'm sitting across from an individual, say, here's a question for you. So have you ever have you ever been, tired when you thought that you shouldn't be tired? Like as an example, have a decent night's sleep and then wake up in the morning and feel tired. Or have you ever felt lethargic, say at like lunch hour, when you feel like you're not that much into the day that you might not? No doubt you look. What I'm doing here is I'm asking a question that I already know the answer to, because you're never going to speak to somebody who doesn't say, you know what, like let's assume this individual is 40, 50 or above years old. Um, Very seldom are they going to say, no, I always feel an abundance of energy, right? So there's a really good chance that you can get in, and now you say, look, what we probably should put you on is XYZ program. And not only is it going to be good for, your back and your flexibility, and there's I would absolutely bring an anti-aging component to it. Like people talk about anti-aging. And again, I've talked about this in the past, but they think about their eyes and that sort of thing. But the way that you walk is very important. Like you want to look old, just walk down the street and, you'll see somebody from behind, and they could be wearing a hat or have dark hair, but if they're walking really slumped over, they absolutely look a little bit aged. So anyway, so you're going to have to tell that story, do a significantly better job than what I have. But you don't just launch into the price. You say, well, here's one of the challenges. You're feeling this. Look, let me walk you into one of our packages and what we can do. Because one of the problems is that you're probably going to come get short-term relief, stop coming, and then in 3 years' time, in 2 years' time, in 12 months' time, you're going to be back. But the problem is you're going to have a significantly bigger problem, and I'm not going to be able to reverse it. So let's get on it now. Let's get that flexibility, and we'll have you looking like a 21-year-old and touching your toes and doing handstands and cartwheels like you were when you were a teenager. So bad example, but you got to have a story, Road Dog. So that's how you get there. So there you go. That's what I'd be doing. And by the way, education, you won't get there without educating your client. And that goes for the pest control company, that goes for the used car sales guy, that goes for the business coach, absolutely. That goes for the accountant. One of the things, like, think education will provide you. I always talk about, margins and the importance of margins. The return, the value that you can bring, and the return that you can get on education is going to trump pretty much anything else that you can do in your company. And then a lot of people aren't natural educators. What you say to them is that you will get better at it. It will become more natural. You'll come up with better stories. You'll come up with better metaphors. You'll come up with better examples, etc. So you should be moving your clients into a way to be able to educate folks. So you won't get to the $5,000 package without education, is what I'm saying, Road Dog. But that's the way you do it.
All right. Speaking of stories, you're the king of stories. There's only probably two people on this planet that I know that can tell a better story than you. And the funny part is they're both from Manitoba. So I guess that's what happens when you can't go outside for 8 months of the year. But anywho, before we sort of get into this week's question, I'm always curious. Is that the right word? Or am I just sort of like, I don't know, like it's sort of anyways, I am curious of what's going on in that brain of yours. But I guess the politer way of saying it is what you're thinking about and working on. It's a dangerous question. I realize this, and I realize that I now have to book off the rest of my morning for you to answer this question. But what I'm curious, man. Tell me, Shoots, like what's going on in your noggin these days? What are you thinking about, and what are you working on right now?
Okay, so rather than a question, you're just saying, like, what am I up to? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, right. Like it's just like you're always a busy guy. I'm always curious to see, like, what's catching your attention. What are you working on? Because it's always cool for me, anyways, to catch a glimpse of that. I don't know, maybe for me to sort of go, why am I not focusing on that? That's almost a bit of a course correct for me, but. So it's 100% selfish question, but I will take it because I'm the co-host, and that's just the way that's how we're going to roll.
Mic drop. I agree, Shoots. Okay, so what am I working on and thinking about? So, well, this morning I was going through some notes, and like I don't know, ambition can be like a vacuum that sucks up everything in its path. your relationships, your health, your time. So therefore, you got to make sure that you're optimizing for the right things, right? Be a little bit careful with that. And again, so ambition, I think I am a pretty ambitious person. Um, Over, a body of work. I mean, I just work, I have a challenge with getting out of my office, not getting into my office kind of thing. So you got to be careful with that. It can suck up relationships, health, and time, and got to make sure you're optimizing for what you want to optimize for. This morning, I was looking at a quote, I'll make a meal of it. It was something that, how is it possible that action A is the best course of action, right? The individual coming up with action A, it's the best course of action. Why would they do anything else other than action A? Right. And it was like, hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, I just sat there and kind of contemplated, quite frankly, in a bit of quiet time. And I was like, God, you know what I mean? Trying to solve those types of problems, and speaking of solving problems, if you have a problem, clearly defining the problem will bring it to 3/4 solved immediately, if not solve it entirely, by the way. But most people, again, it's solution, 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 which is important. And I always talk about that. You got to go problem solution. You got to change your spidey senses from looking for ideas. But you by defining the problem properly, that solution could become significantly easier. Like, because you could, so Road Dog, me, and then somebody else could have a problem, and all three of us solve it. But Road Dog solves it at what we'll call 100%. I solve it, say 80%, and then somebody else still can say that they solved it, but they're at like 60%. Do you know what I mean? So you be able to solving it at a higher level is and often the problem that sits in front of you is often not the real problem, which means again you didn't define it properly. So I don't know, these are things. Here's something I said to a buddy over the weekend, and I wrote this in an email not long ago, and I think it has insane power. But doing less and wanting more is the foundation of business failure. So much so that I think everybody should write that one down and possibly put it on a post-it note and put it on your computer where you're never far from. But like doing less and wanting more, that's so common, right? And it's the foundation of business failure, especially when somebody has, got to the 3-year mark, the 5-year mark. They're like, this should all be easier. I should be further ahead. You know what I mean? And they kind of, just doing less and wanting more. This is when things are about to go sideways. Don't focus on the behaviors. Focus on the patterns of your behaviors. My opinion is that this, in a private moment, a bit of a family kind of dynamic, this is what I'm, again, that's next level. When rather than looking at your behaviors and then trying to course correct, which would be totally understandable and something that debatably should be doing, right? But if you look for the patterns of your behaviors, if you look for the patterns in your business coaching clients' behaviors, in your prospects' behaviors, in your joint venture behaviors, there will be some serious magic there. If you want to course correct, you wanted to talk about defining a problem properly and having it 3/4 solved. Again, if you can really get to the root of the problem, you can really identify the pattern at a high level, you're going to see that it's going to be very, very obvious what needs to happen in order to get somewhere.
Hang on, can I interrupt you there for a sec?
Yeah,
What,
please.
when you say, so how do you define a behavior and how do you define a pattern? Because aren't they the same thing?
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. You're in your company and there's a what do we call it? Let's talk about staff and they're pissing you off, right? What will happen is that what will happen with a lot of bosses is they will go quiet, right? And then what happens when you don't deal with a situation? Does it get worse or does it get better? It clearly gets worse. And then what they do is they run over the top of it and then end up making a little bit of a mess, right? Doing the Will Smith 101 and coming up there and slapping somebody. You know what I mean? So the pattern is that the silence and the avoidance, and what we need to do is see that and say, whoa, right? Like moving forward, the minute that we have a challenge, what we got to do is we got to, either diarize it or write it down, but what you do need to do is you need to deal with it and deal with it immediately and do it with a clear head, right? So as opposed to the dynamic of, getting really pissed off. It's like Road Dogg, another one, negotiating, right? Like what happens is people are either a total in negotiation, which people don't tend to study or think about a lot. And that is a dramatic mistake because a lot of what you do in life is just everything's a negotiation. Very few things are black and white, yes and no. Most of them are gray, and that ancillary, that complementary option. So practicing that would be a good idea. So why I said that is that we let it go, and then by the time they deal with it, a small problem became a big problem, and now they got a bigger challenge to deal with. So the pattern is the avoidance. So you got to go to the avoidance and solve that. Make sense? Good example.
Yeah, makes sense. I just wanted just further clarity on that because for a lot of I don't know, like I guess initially I was looking at it's not the same thing. You know what I mean?
In a family dynamic, it could be again at like 8 o'clock. So look, 8 o'clock p.m. Look, every diet works until 7 p.m. Right? At 7 p.m., there's a pattern. Right? You're about to go to bed. You hit the cookies. You hit the chips. You grab the Twinkie, the donut. Right? It's the pattern. It's what you got to do if you want it. I can tell you the 100% certainty. If you want to go on a diet, you need to make a plan to combat you'll be great until 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. onwards will be the death of your diet. So, and it's a pattern, right? At 7 p.m. something happens, right? Anyway, so that's an example. Or other people have different, at 8 o'clock, they're a little bit tired. They're a little bit ornery. It's dinner's over. They got to get the kids to bed. There's a bunch of things that compound really quickly before bed. And so they go red a little bit. If you look at, the dynamic of a family, you'll see that there's a lot of unnecessary conflict happens in and around that time with the kids, with bedtime, between, between kids, between spouses, etc. So that's like the pattern. They're everywhere, man. Not just the behaviors, but the patterns behind them. You really start looking for it, you'll see some serious ABCs that could be easily defined and therefore fixed real quick. Is that good?
Yeah, no, so I guess another word we could use for behavior is almost a trigger.
Boom. Yes, because the trigger then brings the pattern of what? Arguing at, yes, 100%, high five. Well, yes, triggers. And and then you got to go to, so strategically think about how you're going to course correct that, so that even trigger maybe one, for me when I'm floating through Facebook and I see the influencer, posing in front of his rented car, like why does Lambo always have to have doors open? You know what I mean? So you just shake my head. Just tell you the language of business is not sales and marketing. The language of business is accounting. And by the way, this week, for my clients listening and anybody thinking about becoming a client and on the fence of becoming a client, we are doing a program, virtual business coaching mastery. We're going to teach our clients how to read a financial document at a very high level in a very 1, 2, 3 ABC systematic way. So get in there. If you're our client, do it. And if you're not our client and thinking about join so you can get in on that training. Be very valuable. Anyway, so I wrote some of the things I'm thinking about. Gosh, it doesn't look. You only need to be right once. I was watching the Oscars, and no doubt if you're listening to this very recent event where Will Smith got up and smacked somebody, right? And there's a lot of guys in there that they had success late in life. You only have to be. You're not too late, and you only have to be right once. Ray Kroc was 52 when he started McDonald's. Colonel Sanders was, I think, 61 when he got his first KFC deal going. But Judi Dench was 60. Martha Stewart was about 50. The guy who owns Red Bull, I can't pronounce his name. It's a funky one, but I believe he was in his 60s when he got it going. So, these are, different. I don't know. You just got to, you're not too late. We talk to people all the time. A business coach, the average business coach is not 23 years old. There's a lot of business coaches. It's it's like their twilight career. It's they're semi-retired and they want to consult, to business. That's some, and far from all, but you know what I mean? Like that's not uncommon. And it's like you're not too late. You're absolutely not. And the money, I don't know. Yeah, you're not too late. You could really, really crack it and become the next, greatest business coach and rival Tony Robbins. It's going to take you some time, and there's going to be a steep learning curve if you're anything close to new to it. But you're not too late. Absolutely. Road Dog, I sent an email not long ago, and we talked about it on the podcast. But I think it's mind-numbing, powerful. Warren Buffett's advice, but he says he tries to. What does he say? Find something for a penny that I can sell for $1 and is habit forming. Again, find something for a penny that he can sell for $1 and that's habit forming. It's just show stopping, mic dropping, next level Elon Musk, the alien just trying to find his way home level thinking that just can change that. You look at his investments, it's things like chewing gum, you know what I mean? Like that would be a classic example. Just think YouTube, think Facebook, think Instagram. It's habit forming, by the way, right? Don't know that you're going to be able to. Those things don't cost a penny, but you could certainly buy them for a penny, sell them for $1. Have a look at the valuations of those guys. Another one, Charlie Munger. Again, I wrote about this and we've talked about this in the not too distant past, but you talked to me what's on my mind, some of the things that are zipping, but show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcomes. Ridiculously powerful. Anyway, so Road Dog, that's there's a buddy I could keep going, but it's just just pushing yourself mentally and using things like mental models. I've said again many a times, I don't know, Road Dog, they've been very beneficial for you, like learning mental models, or actually no, better worded is applying. Screw learning, because that doesn't get you where you need to go. It's the application of mental models, slowing down. That would be family, Road Dog, to the the patterns that we just talked about, right? Like using a mental model will allow you to not be, you still get triggered, but what will happen is the pattern will be recognized and you will no longer allow that small scenario with your wife, with your kids, with your clients, with your prospects, with your business partner, with your staff become really big. You know what I mean? Like, again, delayed gratification, like just understanding that the best things in life very seldom urgent, right? In fact, potentially never urgent. Best things are all built around compounding. I built software, profit acceleration software, and a profit acceleration simulator, completely and 100% built around the concept of compounding. It's just where all good things. Think about plant. You can't water a plant 10 times a day and have it grow quicker. You just kill it. You can't get pregnant 9 times and have a kid in a month instead of 9 months. That's not the way it works. Delayed accepting that things take time, but people are so impatient on a subconscious level, including and starting with me, by the way. But I'm fancy myself as a guy who's doing his best to learn all of these things and apply these, totally life changing. So Road Dog, and maybe just the richest people in the world build networks. Like think they build. I have a email list of 100,000 people get my daily email, right? Like it's a list, a list of prospects, a list of clients, a cable network, a franchise network. Maybe I'm not a big MLM guy, but like an MLM network. If you do hit it, you really hit it. The richest people in the world build networks, whereas I don't know, poor people, but people not succeeding at the level they would like are kind of going from opportunity to opportunity. And there you go. And speaking, going opportunity to opportunity, like that saying, Road Dog. It's not what you know, it's who you know. See, it's categorically incorrect. It's who knows you that matters. And then what do they know you for? Like looking like a big deal is not the same as being a big deal. So again, careful. Now there, Road Dog, you're a little bit of a, there you go, Shoots.
It's rabbit
what do you
hole
think?
city. Like there's no denying this is rabbit hole city. And by the way, I'm happy to know that the biggest deal of all big deals on the planet, Karl Bryan, knows my name and knows who I am. So I feel pretty good about that right now. So there you go, Shoots. What was I going to say about that? There was something in there. Like really good list, dude. Like really, really, really good list.
Yeah. Nice.
I did want to maybe circle back though, real quick. You mentioned Ray Kroc, you mentioned Colonel Sanders, Judi Dench, Martha Stewart. Can you just attempt the name of the Red Bull guy, just for all of us? That'd be great. I'd love to hear your. If it's one thing I know, it's Karl Bryan is a very cultured man, and he speaks many different dialects. So,
Yeah.
what's the
Yeah.
name of the Red Bull owner again?
I,
How do you
I
pronounce that?
speak redneck, Road Dog. My first language is redneck. So I grew up in a very small town, 5,000 people. Very proud of it, by the way. Cochrane, Alberta, ladies and gentlemen. Um, I don't know, what is it? Uvidja, I think maybe. I don't know. Man.
It's so good.
Charles Uvidja,
Listen,
something like
dude,
that.
we for those that aren't part of the pre-show, like Carl typically does this name envy thing, and he just butchers the hell out of everybody's names. Like it's glorious, like it just is. But to your last point there, you're talking about building networks. Like it's one of the most misunderstood things when it comes to marketing online. Stop looking for the sale and start looking for the list. You know what I mean? It's like, what if your platform were to disappear? Um,
Yeah.
we talked about in the pre-show. You talked about having, foundations, right? The chairs under, or sorry, the legs under the table. Like
Yeah.
if you're relying on, say, okay, the Facebook isn't going anywhere, but let's use that as the example, right? If all of your stuff is going on Facebook ads, and perfect example. So last week they got rid of a whole bunch of different categories for targeting. So now all of a sudden, now what if you're relying on that, and now you got to relearn it and figure out the new audiences and new targeting that you have to set. You're done. Like it's going to take you time to figure that out again, right? So I just thought that was
Yeah.
pretty important. It's just like, if you need to own your list, but yes, you need to have multiple streams of um, building that list that you own. That's exactly why you do the daily email. You have a big list that you can always market to, and you own that list no matter what happens. So I just wanted to point that out. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I would agree. In fact, I want to expand. We just mentioned in the pre-show the net, like just somebody asked about, doing a specific lead generation activity. We said is like absolutely, but if you've got one activity, you're an umbrella. You want to think about being a table, and then if you've got four legs under your table, it's pretty sturdy. If you got three, it's going to stand up, but you're not overly sturdy. And if you had eight legs underneath your table, this is a big, a windstorm can come through and you'll still be standing. So a little bit to that point, but yeah, building your list, folks. Absolutely. Got a high five, Road Dog. Agreed. Build
All
your
right.
list.
Speaking of that, so that's a good list that you just had there. So now, for those paying attention, like I know you've been diving deep into IT, software, SaaS, digital companies, all of that very exciting stuff that I would never want any part of. Um, has any of that given you any further thoughts around, just ideas specific to those types of companies?
SaaS and yeah. In fact, I wrote about this recently. But so your best customer look, the best customer service department is that you don't need a customer service department. Your customer shouldn't need to call or message you in an online world. Think Facebook and Google and how difficult it is to get a hold of anyone. The friction. They just less humans are the enemy of scale. So you want to have less of that. In fact, we just literally we didn't well, we hired somebody. I guess we hired somebody to fill a position because we elevated somebody that's been with us for 9 years. Uh, and basically his job is to go through and reverse engineer all of our support tickets and then the future ones that come through. And then the goal is to basically create a process so that it would eliminate the need for somebody to send that support ticket. Again, so I'll just tell you, Jeff Bezos 101, raving, make a meal of this, but it's something to the effect of raving fans don't send support tickets, right? That's our buddy Jeff Bezos. So that's where that comes from. I think that's that's fresh like this weekend. Something like I was talking like we're building this. Well, I should let this out of the bag. We're building podcast software right now. Um, it's got a little bit of a twist to it, but I think it's going to be pretty darn cool and be very valuable for our clients. Hopefully, so it's not an experiment if you know it's going to work. I know what our guys are doing. I know our lead generation processes. Obviously know a lot about business coaching and getting clients. Like it's not an experiment if you know it's going to work. That's not to say that you shouldn't collect data. Be very careful with that. But there's just some things you just know. So again, because otherwise, again, if we did all the testing and whatnot, I was like, guys, it's already going to take X amount of months to get this out. Um, do we want to add 3 months to that? And by the way, other priorities will jump the queue and go in front of it. So, anyways, it's not an experiment if you know it's going to work. I will tell you this. I am not like a branding. I'm not I'm more of a direct response guy versus a branding guy. I'm not branding. I don't know. Yeah, it's great companies. This is Steve Jobs 101 if you research Apple, but great companies are built on great products. The end. That's how Apple became Apple and spent very little money on advertising over many, many, many years. And that would be Facebook and that would be Amazon as well. But great companies are built on great products. My question for the business coaches: what products do they have? What services do they have? What are they named? How do they work? And then when you're looking at your clients' businesses, what products do they have? And are they great? Are they legitimately, Steve Jobs, insanely great? Like risk comes from not knowing what the hell you're doing. Again, SaaS world can be very expensive and, pay a lot of people to do a lot of mindless activity. Got to be careful with that, but risk comes from not knowing what the hell you're doing. But that being said, how do you learn what to do? You learn by doing, but you got to be making sure you're collecting data along the way and not allowing your gut. Gut stands for gave up thinking. Be careful with that one. I said something. The great products and about like branding. Like here's one that I think has a lot of power. I think you guys can decide, but your personal brand, like what is it, right? And what is your personal brand? Let me tell you, when you're not in the room and people are talking about you, that's your personal brand. The end, drop the mic, right? And then my question as a business coach, so are you the guy that comes across overly salesy or the gal that comes across overly salesy? Or are you the person that puts value first? Anyways, I don't know. I think there's, I don't know. Yeah, you're going to build a kick butt company. You're going to want to have represent us, some core values. They should be thinking about that. It's just consistent. Just again, software. You just consistency, road dog. You just, consistency will turn. And again, I wrote this in an email not long ago, but consistency can turn ordinary into extraordinary. Nothing, but unfortunately, it's what I said earlier about the mental models. I just delayed gratification and being willing to forgo the result for a period of time. That's it. And like Facebook, what do they say, that they break things? If you're not falling on your face, if things are not working, if you're not failing, you're just not innovating enough. Okay. And again, most people are, hyper, they're like perfect. If you introduce me to a perfectionist, I'll introduce you to somebody who doesn't get a lot done. Right. So yeah, just if you're going to run you're going to run a business in that world, you're going to have to be hyper excited about innovation. And then look, if your goal is $1 billion, paranoia is a worthy pursuit. Words straight out of the mouth or very close to of somebody very close to me, which I thought was, had a lot of power. Again, paranoia, most people think that's a bad thing. It's conversation I had with someone who's worth a lot of money. Apparently, in his opinion, paranoia is a great thing. Think of a professional athlete. If you're the left winger on the New York Rangers, there are about 16 kids making half as much as you, significantly, making less money than you, significantly more energetic than you, significantly more enthusiastic than you, trying to take your job every single day, right? So think about it in that kind of a dynamic. Paranoia is probably a pretty good idea. So, do you have it in the business world? Talked about guy like Michael Jordan doesn't become Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Wayne Gretzky, without, I don't know if paranoia is the right word, but being significantly driven by fear of loss as opposed to joy of gain. When I interviewed a guy again last week on Friday, we've talked about this in the past, Road Dog, but like, again, I start the conversation is not, if the conversation is about how much money I'm going to pay him, the conversation is a very short one, right? And then the most successful speech of all time was what? Started with 3 words or 4 words. I had a dream, right? MLK, Martin Luther King. It didn't start with I've, you know, I've got a step-by-step plan, right? Like, and how do you start your meetings? How do you start your talks? How do you start your calls? How do you start your appointments? When you meet somebody on the plane or the bus or wherever in a networking group, like, what are you talking about, right? Talking about how amazing things are and how exciting it is, and COVID's been brutal, but some of the opportunities that have come forth, what you've learned, talking from a place of 30,000, things are amazing. I think, yeah, I had a dream. Just think about that when you're speaking to people. Are you starting with that? It's a good chance. No. And it's like advertising. We said earlier, like Apple, like, again, like, we don't do, for a company doing what we're doing, 49 countries, we don't do a lot of advertising, very little. We have a referral network. We'll make, it's a lot of sales today as a result of our referral network, what we've built over a body of, over a decade plus, plus, plus. But it's like, advertising is not the way to grow a SaaS. Frankly, growth loop is what, if you look, a growth loop is something that everybody should be researching. Again, we talked about that in the past. I made the mistake of having a little Facebook conversation about it. Every once in a while, I make that mistake. And I made it a short one. I just said, look, go study this. Maybe I have no idea. I'm okay with that, but here's where to go. This is what I'd be studying. And it basically had quotations around growth loops. You can see that, but advertising is not the way to grow that kind of company. It's not to say that they shouldn't advertise. I've been on record as saying, again, advertising to profit is a superpower, and I absolutely believe that. But in the SaaS world of growth loops and some of the opportunities in a digital company, very different. So, and then a toothbrush test, Road Dog. I just look, Google don't work on thing that you won't use twice a day. So think Chrome, think YouTube, think Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Maps, Google Drive, Google Docs, and all the products that they have got. If they don't think you'll use it twice a day, they're not going to build it. So, thinking about how you're going to, you're thinking about things that you're going to build. You've got a company that's a tech play of some description. Are their clients going to be using this twice a day? And if they're not, they might want to think twice about creating it. So Road Dog, lots of, those are some of the things, and opportunity lies, Road Dog, where the complaints are. Where are the complaints? Again, we go to behavioral patterns, right? You go into avoidance and, oh, that idiot, and God, our guys, they can't work a computer, they can't send an email, they can't do this, they can't do that. Well, opportunity is where, the complaints are where opportunity lies on steroids. Might want to go head first and straight to that. So there you go, Road Dog. That was a little bit
so
rabbit hole-ish. What do you think?
You talk about the I had a dream. I know what when you do a presentation, I know exactly what everyone's first words are in their brains. I thought he was taller, for sure.
I've heard that before.
I know you have. I'm stealing your joke from you too. So, but I don't think we've ever said in the podcast, so it's mine. So there you go. Listen, real quick on that, you made a point there, and it brought me to actually something I pulled out of my sermon yesterday that I was watching. People always say they want something, right? It's like, and the craziest part, Carl, is the fact that it's like, I want whatever it is. Name whatever it is you want, and all you look at is the good. You talk about the
Yeah.
paranoia, right? So
Yeah.
what I got out of my sermon yesterday was, you say you want something, but if you knew what it came with, would you still want it?
Yeah.
Like,
That
with every
like
good, with
fame.
every growth, with
Would you
every
agree? Fame.
opportunity, it's not all
Oh,
sunshine and unicorns. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So I
Like
thought that
fame,
was,
Road Dog. Some people they think they want to be famous, and then ask somebody who's famous, and then ask them how it's working out, right?
right.
So would that fall into what you were saying? You agree with
Well,
that?
100% it would. It's sort of like, I want to be a self-employed entrepreneur so I have more time with my family. Like, we know how Tony starts Business Mastery, right? It's like, how's
Yeah.
that working out for you? Like,
Yeah.
it's, you
Right.
say you want all these things, but have you actually thought about what comes along with it? And then, is that really what you want? And if you do, awesome, go for it. Yes, absolutely. But don't just assume that because, well, I'm going to make $1 million. Do you understand? You know what? Perfect example, Carl. You always talk about that, right? It's like, do you want $1 million business with all this staff and employees and the headaches and everything, or do you just want like $150,000-$200,000 business? That's just easy. Like,
Yeah.
do you want what goes with it? I think that's a perfect example.
Nice. Yeah, I agreed. Careful what you wish for, Shoots. Careful what you wish for.
There it is.
It's but people again because they don't operate with mental models and delayed gratification. And again, it's just Road Dog. It's little red arrow. You are here. What do you want? Coaching and the journey, the destination is between those 2 points. Call them A and B, and bingo, bango, bongo. That's the solution. But you got to make sure you define that. You know, the destination B is where you want to go. Do you really want to go to LA? Do you really want to go to New York? Is that where you want to go? And if you define it properly, it's the journey is going to become pretty straightforward. But
It's like
agreed, Road
saying,
Dog.
I
Some
want to
people,
become a business coach, but I want to remain comfortable and not step out of my comfort zone. I don't want to cold
yeah,
call. I don't want to pitch people. I don't want to do presentations. I don't want to learn accounting. You know what I mean? Like, good luck with
yeah,
that. We'll see how that works out for you.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's
Anywho,
Road Dog. So many times obviously I've spoken to business coaches for, better part of 2 decades, like pretty much full time as a career. And so many times when I get somebody on the phone and they start telling me, or face to face for that matter, but it would normally be on the phone, and they tell me all the things they're not going to do, like starting with cold calling. Look, so that's just, that's beyond me. See, the problem with that, Road Dog, is it's all about them, right? It's like, oh, okay, so you don't want to help people. Like, that's what you're saying. You know, if they're clearly defining what it is that they're not going to do, unfortunately, doesn't it doesn't work out very well on average for those individuals. And that being said, being lazy can be a superpower. You just need to be efficiently lazy. In that you can't be lazy, you have to get good. Rather than thinking about it as being lazy, you got to get really good at delegation. And again, very clearly define roles and things that you want accomplished, etc. And you can be dangerously efficient. Warren Buffett. How does Warren Buffett like build, own, and run to this day, run to a large degree, still in charge of all capital allocation, decisions and where they invest. Warren puts his signature on it, right? Like the guy, he reads 80. Everybody's seen that out there, I'd imagine. Like the guy reads 80% of his, from nine. Let's assume he works 9 to 6 every day. He reads 80% of the time. Somebody saw his calendar once. I saw this. I don't know where it was, but I believe it to be true. And like on his calendar for the week, he had one appointment that was to go get a haircut. How do you run a company worth hundreds of billions of dollars and have nothing on your calendar? And the answer is you got to get really good at delegation, not pretend, not kinda. And I guarantee back, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it wasn't that good. And actually, Road Dog, a little bit rabbit hole-ish, but I think super powerful. Like Warren Buffett, when he was, I believe, 55 years old, um, he was not, I don't know what he was worth, but it was like, I'm going to say 200, I don't know the number, but I'm going to say 250 million, right? Which is a lot of money. But at 55, he's worth 250 million. It might be significantly more than that, but it was not, it's a lot of money, but not stupid amount of money. And then at the age of now he's 90 or whatever he is, he's worth hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. Like most of that wealth, like 90x%, 90 plus percent of that money was made. I wish I can't remember the stats, Road Dog, but it was like after he was 75 years old, right? So if he had an early, untimely death, Warren Buffett, we're not here talking about him. The end, mic drop. And that's delayed gratification 101. The important is very seldom the urgent. Incredible power, that statement. Incredible.
Love it.
There you
And
go.
seeing as you didn't ask me my thoughts, I'll just give you what I've been thinking about. And that quite simply was over the weekend I got a referral and from a client, and it's like it got me thinking of like all of these people that are selling all these hardcore sales tactics and stuff. It's like, man, I got no interest in that. Like, I just want to get on a call and have a real conversation with somebody and be like, so where are you at? Like, and if I can't help them, I'm not going to try and pretend like I can. And I'm not going to beat around and try and be in the race to zero for price. Like, it's either going to work or not, but I'm going to show up with my intention of adding some real value in that conversation, and that's it. And then where it lands, and that's it. I just don't understand. We put so much pressure on ourselves to close. Like if your whole object, like how about just lead with value? Would that not be like a cool thing, Karl? Like if everybody is led with value out of the gate, and it just make everybody's lives a lot less stressful of going out and talking to people, because you just be wanting to truly, genuinely help them. Like, that's it.
Road Dog, I used to send this in almost like tons of, might have actually been in the closing of every email when I originally got my daily email going, but it's something like this. Hopefully I'll get it, but you'll get the idea. But you don't, I might have said this last week. I said it on a Q&A call for sure this week. But anyways, it's, you don't have a client problem. You don't have a money problem. You have a refusal to help people before they pay you problem. That's the problem. And Road Dog, if we took that approach, I think we'd all be doing significantly better shoots.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, big man, close us out. What's the one thing, or would that be it? Would that be your thing, or are you going to pick something else? What are you going to do here? What's the one thing?
That's Road Dog saying, let's get the hell out of here.
Seriously, like the people are like, let's get on with our day. You know what I mean? Karl's going down another rabbit hole. Just pick the last thing. Let Road Dog do the close, and let's move on. But what is it, Shoots? What are you going to pick?
Hang on. Just because you said that, I got to go to something that's, innovating. I think maybe because I went on that, we were talking kind of SaaS companies, but like stop advertising and start innovating. I want people to just go deep, like with their clients. Like you got to be different. Like Steve Jobs. If you haven't watched the Steve Jobs movie, and sadly I've watched it many, many, many times. The one with Ashton Kutcher specifically, I think that one's way better. But anyway, so it's like I think they're talking about IBM, and then he says we don't want to be better than IBM. We need to be different. You got to go different. Again, we built profit acceleration software, digital acceleration software. We're building all kinds of different group coaching software, profit acceleration simulator. It's all different. You can't get it anywhere else in the world. We're going to continue to do that. I mentioned the podcast software earlier that we're building. Like we're just building things that nobody else is doing. And by the way, providing value. And then the leading question before we go and create a piece of software is it, what is the problem? Does this solve it? Right? And what kind of piece of software can we build that solves problems? And if it doesn't solve problems, we don't work on it. But this is so for you, the business coach listening, like innovation, are you trying to be better? That's than the other business coaches are going to the networking and, like be different, really stand on your own. Be different, be charismatic. And by the way, did I say this? Confidence has no competition. Might have said that earlier, may not have, but confidence has no competition. So that, by the way, and that's not the innovation that I'm trying to talk about, but I can tell you will help you stand, apart in a very real and tangible way. But are your clients innovating? Are you innovating? And when, innovation can be, and it doesn't mean you have to go and spend a bunch of money on software, not even close. Innovation can be the words that you use, the pitch that you use, the hook that you use, the report that you create, the book that you wrote. And that's not necessarily ideal. I'm hoping you go a little bit deeper than that, but I'm trying to give you some surface level to get you started. But innovation, 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 innovation. I think that there's some power in that because it just one little tweak, one little adjustment can make a monumental shift. It's like 80-20, but like a million times deeper. So yeah, I don't know. Summary, innovation is going to be the closing thought of the day. Road Dog.
And you know what the best way to be different is? It's to be you. How do you like that? There's only one of you, and just be that. KB is KB, and no one can be him. That's a fact, right? And it's working out well for him. So, and that's I don't know. What do you think of that, bud? Like, I just think if everybody just embraced on who they truly are and had their personality shine and just have that confidence to be themselves, I think they'd be so much better off. So
yeah, and I do. I think that a little trite, but I like Road Dog. You're 100% correct, right? You got to be authentic. And social media, we see it all the time. You know, people who you know and they're not overly funny, and then they're posting like really really funny stuff, or they're like a really funny person, and they're I don't know. You just got to just be yourself. That's the best way to do well online. Just provide value for sure. But make sure it comes from an authentic place.
Yeah, beautiful. Look at us. We're not just a business coach. We're like a personal development branding product. That's unbelievable. Dude, we're growing. It's amazing. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man on top of the hill, the king himself, King Karl. And if you're not on the inside getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or you want more information on how to grow your coaching business through using the group coaching software, or any of the other amazing stuff that Karl's got coming, go to focused.com and subscribe today. Again, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a fellow friend, coach, or anyone that you think might get some value out of this. And if you liked what you heard, please leave us a review, because that will make a huge impact for moving us up the ladder of success on the world of podcasts. Anyways, that is it for another week. Remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.